It's SharePoint Dev Weekly, episode 47. It's gonna be amazing! Something new on the start. Anyway, so welcome everybody, SharePoint Dev Weekly, episode 47. It is, what is it? What day is it? It's Monday at least, so that much I know, but it's 12th of August. Time flies when you're having fun. I've been now back for work for 1 week, but you're on vacation. Mikael.
No,
you're on vacation.
I've been back on for 1 week as well, but I'm currently in my house in Sweden, so it feels like vacation because I have a chimney sweeper coming tomorrow. So I figured, well, I'll do 2 days from my other home, so a long weekend.
Yeah. So in Scandinavia, for those who are not aware, in Scandinavia, it's quite common. It's probably more common than not to have a separate summer house, which is actually a real house. It's not really a summer house. Typically, you can live on those for winter time as well, but it's kind of your vacation place.
Yeah, I use it all year round, Easter, Christmas, whenever. Right?
Yeah, it's quite typical. And we talked about this one actually last week with Irvin as well. Back in, let's say, a decade ago or 2 decades ago, especially in Helsinki, it was weird in July because everybody had their vacation in July. So on July, Helsinki went shut down. Nowadays, it's not that bad, but it used to be horrible. It's like, where is everybody? What's happening? Because everybody is having their vacation.
Yeah, so I was working a little bit in July as well in Oslo, and it was very quiet in Oslo walking to the office. But last week, cafeteria is back on. It's full of people walking around. Yeah, a lot of traffic. So.
And what's actually interesting, you can see that quite directly also from SharePoint framework usage. Because the Scandinavia is always an early adapter on the latest cloud technologies. So in the Scandinavia, you can see a drop in July, but then it goes back in early August. Yeah. And in September, we'll be back online for massive growth. But the growth, it's still growing, but the growth is slowing down. So it wasn't really growing in July as much as it did, for example, in May. May was, I think, double-digit growth on usage. Anyway, so one of the discussion points with Mikael, you used to be an MVP in SharePoint for quite a few years. People might know you or might not know you. Can you do a quick intro, who you are and what do you do right now? And then we'll get back on the discussions.
Yes. So my name is Mikael Svenson. So I'm currently a principal program manager working for Microsoft. Been with Microsoft since June 3rd, so a couple of months.
So really long time.
Yeah. Before that, I was a consultant working with SharePoint and Office 365. Was an MVP since 2011. Written 2 books about SharePoint and Search. Spoken at multiple conferences, doing a lot of development SharePoint framework. Contributed to PMP PowerShell, part of the PMP core team. Yeah, basically. Doing whatever I think is fun, right?
Well, that's that's a thing what people should be aiming for, right?
Yes.
Having a job where you actually are able to have fun. Just out of curiosity, can you kind of walk through how did you end up on a new position in Microsoft as a principal program manager?
Yep.
And you were an MVP before that, but how did that happen?
So I actually had a blog post about this as well, where the conspiracy is real. So I guess over the years, typically once a year, I've had a coffee chat with my now boss, Katrine Hammervoll, in the FAST organization of Microsoft, where we've been talking about search. So she said a little bit about, well, what's happening sort of behind the scenes, NDA stuff, and then I'm sort of coming from the customer side. Yep. But in this January, she had a different agenda, and she told me some of the plans happening with search. And I mean, I've been thinking about being on the inside, being on the outside for a long time, and people always say, well, how come you're not working for Microsoft? And that's because, well, it's been very comfortable being on the outside. You could sort of maybe be more opinionated or not.
That's true.
You can talk to Patrick.
Well, it's debatable, yeah.
You can talk to Patrick Rogers about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I figured, I got nothing to lose. So I went through the process. I figured, let's see if I can have an impact on the inside working with search. So I'm with the FAST organization in Oslo, and we're working on Microsoft Search. So that's sort of our component integrating with everything else. Yeah.
So it's not just about SharePoint. You didn't join SharePoint organization because that has been now revamped, and it's part of the larger Office organization still, or Microsoft 365 organization. But it's Search, and it's Microsoft Search. It's the whole it used to be part of the FAST and then SharePoint, and then we merged those things, and now it's an own independent thing.
So people might have heard about last year when there's like Bing for Business, which is sort of not a term being used anymore, and now it's Microsoft Search in Bing, Microsoft Search in SharePoint, Microsoft Search in Teams, Microsoft Search in whatever workload Search will surface in.
Yeah, which is super exciting. So that we are kind of revamping the whole model. Now, what would be that's interesting discussion on being on the outsider and being an insider. Before we go to your first impressions for 2 months, I've been in Microsoft now for 13 years or something. I can't anymore communicate for anything outside, but what would be your kind of what would be your recommendation if somebody wants to be part of Microsoft and joining Microsoft? What would be the learning from your side around what should they do?
What they should do in order to join Microsoft? I guess you need to pay attention to positions being opened. That's for one on careers, right?
Right. Absolutely true. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Mikael.
Yeah, and the other point would be, I mean, if you're at conferences, a community, I mean, interact with people like us, right? Because we might know some of the positions, and if you know someone who's good at something, well, then you will ask them to apply, and that's how I got in there, right? Because they knew me from the outside, and then they asked me, well.
Absolutely. And one of the things what you've been recently or since last year actually build on is also the SharePoint framework search web part. You were one of the guys who actually built that. Now you've been on search for a long, many years, so it's not just because of this web part, obviously. But we're going to talk about that one. We're going to have a look on that one as well. But what's do you have any discussion points related on the web part? So what's going to happen now? You were one of the guys who were leading the web part. Are we going to replace that with out-of-the-box functionality, or what's going to happen?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been probably doing some kind of development for the past 20 years, almost every day, and now my job is not doing development. So now
that sounds familiar.
so now PMP development might be the one place where I actually get to do some development, and I do still do some development on those search parts and some of the PMP PowerShell when there's stuff I've been working on before. So I'll still do my development. So the question is, will I be able to do that as part of my day job, or will it only be on my spare time? I don't know yet.
Yeah, that's what is a day job and what is a spare time. That's an interesting discussion as a principal PM, because it's like it's a really hard thing to define. What is your day job? What is a daytime? What is your working hours and what's not? Because it represents Microsoft all the time. So.
Yeah, but what I can say is if someone took a look at the slide on search from SharePoint, the SharePoint conference this year in May, there was a mention there that you could redirect the modern search box to a custom page using, for example, the PMP search web part. So the PMP search web parts were part of that slide. And yes, I had an impact on having that on the slide. So that means we're actually looking at how we can reuse or use the PMP search web part as part of the complete search story for customizations.
And at least for now, it is bridging the gap, right? Because right now, the modern SharePoint, modern SharePoint we don't have a modern SharePoint experience. And one of the reasons, let me be quite transparent and open on that one. If you think about the fact that Microsoft Search was pretty recently announced, and there was a massive reorganization and decisions and realignment inside of Microsoft, and that always means that the development is slightly slowing down until we'll figure out how do we actually reorg and what do we actually need to do. So now there is people in your team or the development team which you are helping or defining their objectives, working on the modern search, right?
Yeah, and then that's sort of the hard part where, I mean, people come from SharePoint are used to doing all kinds of customizations. Yeah. But if you think about where Microsoft Search is going, it's not only SharePoint, it's hosted in all these other experiences. And that means you can't really take a dependency on SharePoint or SharePoint framework per se, because it has to work outside of SharePoint as well. That's sort of some of the struggle where Microsoft Search is going and where good old SharePoint old-timers want the product to go. And then we need to figure out, well, what kind of customization should be supported and where would SharePoint framework bridge the gap, and what kind of first-party search web part should come from the org you're working for. So I know that's something which is constantly being discussed as well.
Yep. Because obviously providing a extensibility on the text box, which is soon in all of the applications and also inside of Office clients and everything else, that's not an easy thing to do because it cannot be a SharePoint framework. It should be, then I don't know what it is. So that's actually a good perspective as well. So why we cannot actually invest only on the SharePoint modern search experience, because the Microsoft Search is much bigger than that. Sure, SharePoint has a lot of value, and sure, you can use the SharePoint framework for both Microsoft Teams and SharePoint development, but also the native experiences will be impacted. Yeah. That's really interesting. That's a good discussion. Now, before we go to the articles, and let's not spend too much time on dwelling obviously on these things, because we want these discussions to be relatively fast, but what's your first impressions? Now that you've been in a company for 2 months, I did warn you when you get in on and you realize how things actually are being done, you might freak out. But what's your...
So, I mean, there hasn't been any shockers yet, because I know a little bit about how Microsoft work, but at least in the organization I work, there's a lot of virtual teams. That means I need to coordinate with people in Redmond, in India, in London, in Germany. So of course there's like time zone issues. I've actually had more morning meetings, like at 6 a.m. in the morning, compared to evening meetings, and that actually works better for me since I usually get up at 6:30 anyways. And then it's sort of figuring out who has what responsibility. I mean, you have this team working on some feature, but who's responsible for driving what? And yeah, that's been hard so far, but I'm getting there. I mean, I just say yes, I'll do that. I'll just like just involve myself as much as possible, and then figure out where it all sticks, right?
Yeah, that's one way of doing that, and obviously it's a good way of doing that, because then you'll get involved in a lot of the things, and that's one thing absolutely, especially in the principal level, is that there's nobody telling you what you need to do. You actually figure it out by yourself, because you are the person who's carrying the responsibility on whatever you're carrying on.
And I sort of have some achievements on like that. I remember when I first did my first email, where I joined 2 different parties which didn't know, but well, you should talk together, right? And then and this happened recently as well with some other features. I know like two teams are working on sort of the similar thing. So well, maybe you should talk together so you don't do it twice. So that's kind of fun when those things happen. And then also involved talking with Microsoft IT, because they actually try some of our features first.
Absolutely. So we are dogfooding all of the capabilities and testing things in MSIT. So.
Yeah, and I did some projects like way back, hired in for Microsoft IT as a consultant doing some of the research stuff. So it's fun being back, and it's the same people, and they remember me, and I remember them. And So,
which by the way proves again, it's a small world. You should never, ever burn any bridges, because you never know who's waiting you on the next job. So,
but I mean, I'm kept busy every day. I mean, there's not like a single minute where I sit and like, what should I do? There's specs to read, and there's A/B experiments you can be part of and review, and so I'm learning a lot. But we're starting planning at the end of this week and next week, so that'll be interesting to plan sort of our big goals for the next year. And next month I'll do my first trip to our India development team, who does a lot of the development on Microsoft Search. So that's going to be interesting as well.
And on which city is that, by the way? Is it Hyderabad or?
Yeah. So actually both Hyderabad and Bangalore. So
yeah. I think I visited Bangalore back in, now I need to remember, 2010.
Okay, yeah.
So it's been a while. But it's obviously meeting people face to face is much more efficient than having a phone call. To be fair, the video thingies do work quite well. So I haven't met my manager for, I don't know when I actually met the guy last time, except on the video. So
but it helps having met people at least once, so you know them sort of face to face, and maybe in a social setting as well.
Absolutely, it definitely helps. Definitely. Yeah. Now let's actually move on the articles. Thank you, Mikael, for a quick update on the first impressions on being a Microsoft employee. Before we actually go, just out of curiosity, there's nothing which you've mentioned that nothing has shocked you. Any surprises? Anything like wow? But really, not even in the smaller things. It's everything that's
Well, okay. So my biggest surprise is so we actually moved into a new building.
Yeah.
and there is like a brand new cafeteria which tries to be like a restaurant. So there's like huge debate about the food in the cafeteria. That's sort of the main pain point. So yeah. So, I like. I mean, I don't need a hot meal for lunch. I just want like some sandwiches with some spreads, and they have no spreads, no cheese, no ham. Right? that's the biggest surprise. Like I can't have my lunch the way I want it.
Well, I can imagine that they'll figure it out. So that should be fine.
It's constant debate.
How many employees there is in the building from Microsoft? It's the Norway Microsoft and the R&D at the same building.
Yes, so I would guess it's at least 200, 250 or something. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, and then we're also sharing. We're sharing the office building with Price Waterhouse and Coopers as well. So
yeah. Okay.
Cool. But it's minor. Like I mean, I don't waste a lot of energy on. As long as I get some food, I'm fine. But yeah.
Okay. Good discussion point.
Anyway.
Right. Yeah. I work mainly remotely from home due many numerous reasons. This is much more productive for me than going to the local office, which would be insane because there's nobody to me to work with there. So I'll figure out my lunch thing. But I can imagine the problem, and especially also in Redmond where there's food is important. So I absolutely understand that, and there's various opinions on that. Now let's move on the article side of the things and discuss those as well. So let me jump on the screen and let me share my screen. So SharePoint Saturday is first. I'm always trying to go this through on the weekly updates as well. Next SharePoint Saturday is in Lima, Peru, on this Saturday. And just out of curiosity, I didn't check any content in here. Seems to be more Spanish or is they're talking Spanish? Yeah. And let's see, do we have any familiar speakers available? And seems to be more local people, definitely delivering there. But definitely, if you're around in South America, that's a good opportunity of joining these things. Seems to be transformation, Microsoft 365, yeah, Power BI. Cool stuff. Good. A few updates from the Microsoft side of the house. We didn't go through last week the updated SharePoint roadmap, July 2019. I just wanted to quickly pinpoint here a few things. So we're going to have a track and drop files to Canvas, and that's actually a really cool thing. Going to be rolling out gradually as well. So you're able to track and drop, upload images automatically just by tracking them to the Canvas, and that's actually really cool. So it will then add a file viewer as in the image viewer, and then put the image in the document library. That's really cool because that's going to help a lot on the editing experience. Link preview on page anchors under redo, really good vertical sections, which we demoed this actually in SBC. Now it's actually coming out as well, so you can then actually have horizontal and vertical sections in a page. Really cool stuff. Site footer is now getting rolled out, or updates on that one, and that's in here, so you don't have to anymore implement a custom site footer. Right now, this is mainly for modern pages, but they're looking into having also that for non-modern pages, so in the lesson libraries side of the house as well. You're able to also control is it visible or not by using the footer-enabled SB or web property, so using the PnP PowerShell on that. We actually have a video even on that one, how to control that. Updated site usage information looks really decent. So you're able to understand which of the files are important and how many things are actually being viewed, which reminded me of an interesting nuance. One of my good old colleagues, Kimmo Forrest, which Mikael might actually remember as well. Still, he moved to Microsoft Azure side of the house, but he at some point taught a study which they had done in dedicated, Office 365 dedicated, that was it up to 95% of the files which are uploaded to the cloud are being accessed and viewed only once when they're being uploaded on the cloud. So it's only actually a subset of the files which are people are being really truly collaborating on. So it's an interesting nuance. 365 image previewer is coming out, active OneDrive sharing synchronizations, and quick edit improvements is an interesting thing. quite a nasty looking and not a nice looking actually rendering here. But if I go here from Chris McNulty, enhanced quick edit for SharePoint list and libraries, we can actually see that the quick edit will support column formatting and view formatting in certain level. And that's really cool. Because now you can actually have all of the customizations in the list also in the quick edit. So it doesn't actually just reset these customizations, which is really cool. Good. Let's move into the community side of the house. So SharePoint Framework Modern Search Web Part, we wanted to talk about this one. So Mikael, do you want to do a quick intro on this one? You've been involved together with Tarald and Frank Cornu on building this.
Yeah, and Yannick as well has been in there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so Frank Cornu started, so we're now in version 3.5. Basically, this project started as a replacement for all the classic search parts, since they were not in modern. So that means you have a search result, web part, search box, search refiner, search pagination, and let's see, did I forget anything? Yeah, and also vertical vertical web part. So basically, all the web parts you had in classic have been remade as modern ones using SharePoint Framework. But instead of using just custom HTML and JavaScript as the old display templates, we chose to use handlebars. There's also support to do your own fully customized rendering using SharePoint Framework. We added now some web components to make a better rendering, and so that's basically the project itself. I'm actually, before this call, I was looking through the latest code since I'm trying to push out the 3.6 release, which has some new layouts.
Yep.
But then, of course, every time I bring in the latest code, the the bundle size just blows up because they don't think about how to chunk it up the best parts. So that's sort of my programming work, just diving back in and figure out, well, how should I rewrite and where is that component being referenced? I can sort of like break it out and make it externally loaded. Yeah. That said, I'm actually working on a larger re-architecture part. So I also had a meeting with some of the premier field engineers in Microsoft to work a lot of research, and they created their own custom branch of these web parts, which they use with some of their larger clients. And they added some more sort of query pipeline functionality, which we want to bring back into the original project. So that's actually one of the good parts. Like joining Microsoft, I sort of got in touch with some of the PFEs, which I know some of them from before, but it makes it easier when you're in the same organization. So I'm just trying to figure out what version 4 should actually look like from an architectural perspective. So I've done a Visio diagram and explained how I want it to look, but basically, for people who are interested in development, we want to do a fully componentized version. That means you could pick, well, what kind of renderer do you want to use? Handlebars, your own thing, I don't know, adaptive cards, whatever component you want to add. And then also what kind of search backend. So right now we're using the SharePoint REST API as a search API. But of course, there's a new search API coming in Graph. Yep. With all the new stuff happening with Microsoft Search, and then we'll want to start using, or at least you should be able to flip and use that API as well, which will have the benefit of bringing in other results besides SharePoint results. Since the SharePoint API only gives you SharePoint results, but that means you could get emails or Stream or Planner, whatever is being ingested into the Microsoft Search index going forward.
Yep.
Or you could use Azure Search, which is also an ask from a lot of organizations. They want to do Azure Search. Well, why not use the same web parts, just switch the backend, right? You just enter your configuration and you could still use the same front end. So make it into a very reusable component regardless of what you want to do.
And this way you can still write some code, right?
Yes, I can still write the code, and then and the web parts would be very easy for someone to just use out of the box. But if you want more customization, you can build on it and then configure it more and do the more advanced configuration if you want to. Absolutely. And I guess that sort of differs from whatever first-party web part, because first-party web parts has to work for everyone. I mean, the advanced scenarios quickly becomes too advanced for like regular office workers. So sort of. Yep.
Absolutely. But this is superb stuff. Absolutely. And people, customers, partners definitely should have a look on this one. Also, and you can definitely, people can contribute on this one and get involved on the what's actually happening here. Pull requests are being more than happy to be. They're more than welcome to get submitted.
And I think we have some roadmap issues as well. We're discussing the plans we have. But it started to be so much contribution. That's why I started to do. I'll do monthly releases. So typically I'll do a release like in the middle of the month. So that's why we're closing on the 15th. So that means the August release should be prepared. But I need to review the code and test it before releasing it without too many bugs, right?
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Cool. Thank you, Mikael, on that one. Now, if you're on other topics, one thing what I wanted to quickly mention, this is getting fixed, but right now we have a relatively nasty bug. If you want to debug list view web parts, list view command sets or field X customizers, you will have to use update the debugging URL to use case sensitivity load SPFX as that one. Yeah. So we have that's how would I put it? Quite awkward bug, unfortunately. So you will have to manually update the URL debugging URL to that one to make things work. This is getting fixed, but making sure that anybody who's watching the SharePoint Dev Weekly is up to date on what is the workaround right now until the fix is getting applied. Now, I was testing the fix pretty recently, and it seems to be that there were some other things, so I can't promise an exact date when it's actually getting fixed properly, but coming soon. Now, let's go to a few other articles, community articles. Build SharePoint framework solutions for on-premises SharePoint with any version of React, TypeScript, and Office UI Fabric. Now, that's pretty big title, but quite interesting title from Search R&D. And this is really around the fact that if you want to use the same code base, same capabilities in on-premises, how do we actually do that? And how do we scaffold things? And how do we set up our solutions in the best possible way? Quite long article. I'm not going to deep dive on the learnings and everything, but we're going to have it in the notes of the video as well for you to have a look on if this is a scenario which you need to tackle with. Now, the next one, how to teamsify, not teamify, teamsify. Well, it could be teamify as well. Teamsify an SPFX solution. So basically, I have a SharePoint framework solution. What do I need to do to make it work also in the Microsoft Teams, and how does it actually work? Microsoft Teams nowadays have two ways of implementing tabs, either using SharePoint Framework as the platform or then using the classic solution structure. There's quite a significant differences actually in that one, because SharePoint Framework, you don't have to have, there's automatic hosting, there's a lot of other stuff which is really easy for you to take advantage. But if you're using the web application SaaS-based implementation in Teams, you will need to figure out hosting permissions and all of that stuff, which is automatic for SharePoint Framework.
And of course, if you create your tabs using something else than a node-based solution, right?
Correct. Absolutely. So, and those two solution options will remain in Microsoft Teams, definitely in the future as well. Now, cool stuff from Antti around that one. Now, from Stefan, SPFX UI Fabric themes version 0.7 released, and this is basically around the theming capabilities and improvements on there using his own extension. So making the colors and themes more easily accessible and usable for development. Really cool stuff as well from Stefan. He's really a genius on the SAS and CSS.
Yes, like he's my go-to guy every time I have an issue with
exactly
with colors in SharePoint Framework.
Yep. Yeah. How does it work? He knows. He just knows the stuff. Now, this one from Mancha Manoy around how to get rid of the horizontal margins or spaces for modern communication sites. So if you have a web part and you're implementing stuff, how to get rid of those things. And there is an easy solution actually for that one for your web parts. If you support full pleat and equals true, that means that your web part is available when a full byte select section is being used on the page. If by default, that setting is not there, so that means that your web part is not available for full byte sections. So really good thing to be aware based on the implementation.
Which is why people should actually read all the documentation on SharePoint Framework, which we added.
That is true. That is true. Yes.
Because it's been documented. I guess this feature has been there for at least a year and a half, I think, right?
True.
Yeah.
But then again, all of these things, it's good to have additional blog posts, and it's repeating, and a different way of presenting the content, and it's a recapping of what's possible. Now, this one was from Hugo Bernier, SharePoint Framework Design Series, Layout Patterns, Part 3, around the SharePoint Framework designing options and patterns and how things should be actually implemented. Hugo is really, he's really great on the SharePoint Framework implementations, and now he's actually, this is kind of a new direction what he's doing as well. So talking about the design practices and implementation practices as well. Really, really great stuff, which people should be having a look on. Which reminded me, actually, we do have a design section for SharePoint Framework implementations in the official docs as well, which people might not be aware of. So documentation guidance and recommendations from Microsoft for the designs and how they should be done. Now, from David Warner, SharePoint Framework Components, Simultaneous Parallel Development. To be fair, I didn't even watch the video, but this is from David, so just being completely honest and transparent. He's having really great videos, and he's really good on explaining the concepts in an understandable way. So great videos to follow up on and have a look. I think he'll be doing this exactly the same thing in upcoming SharePoint Dev community call as well. So you can actually join and do live questions during the demo and the call, which is a great opportunity.
And this is actually a feature we're trying, I'm fixing to use for the re-architecting of the modern search web parts to componentize the different parts.
Yeah. Now, the library components GA is still kind of a pending because the SharePoint Framework 1.9 is not out. We're going to release 1.9.1 hopefully this week, but I can't promise that. No promises yet. So. And then a final article from a community site, complete Microsoft Flow approvals using view formatting. Kind of an interesting setup from Anoop related on using the flow in the context of SharePoint in this case, and using then the view formatting. So what are the steps and how to make these things happen? When I click a button, it actually starts the flow as well.
Yeah, so I actually had an updated post this week where how to use flow approvals with SharePoint approvals in site page library, where I had a post, I think it was last year or earlier this year, and then I sort of made a fix for it because you now have better triggers in Flow for SharePoint, so you can actually check on different fields, values of fields before triggers.
And that's definitely one of the areas where we will have more and more investments in the future. So the better integration with Microsoft Flow and Power Apps together with SharePoint. So really, and SharePoint is quite heavily used, other way around. In the areas of Flow and Power Apps, SharePoint role is quite big actually from the usage perspective. So it's that they're being used in the context of SharePoint quite heavily. Cool, but that's it for the articles. I'm going to stop presenting, and we're going to close up the webcast, the web vlog quite fast. Now, we're actually, by the way, experimenting most likely with this one already, getting a podcasts out on these things as well. So especially for the sections where we don't go through live articles, but it's debatable that should we actually have the article go live section in the podcast as well. I'm kind of curious on feedback on that one. So if anybody can provide feedback on Twitter or in social media, please do let us know. So getting this exact thing live as a podcast, because at least I listen quite a lot of podcasts when I'm walking with my dog outside in the forest. So now, any last words from your side, Mikael? What are we expecting from your next, other than what we've been chatting? When do we have something new on the Microsoft Search?
Well, since we're doing planning now next week, so hopefully. And I've also been working on a small post together with Bill Bear, sort of on the roadmap.
Bill Bear is now the marketing manager for Microsoft Search.
Yes. Yeah, because there's been a lot of questions on Twitter about different things about Microsoft Search, and then we sort of grabbed some of those questions. I've been writing out some answers just to maybe clarify some things. So not sure when that goes out, but I guess if you follow Bill Bear on Twitter or tech community, it will happen there. Yeah.
Yep. And one thing to maybe mention, Mikael, you said that we're going to start planning what we're going to do next year or this year. And just to clarify that one, it's not next year as in 2020.
No.
It's around the fiscal year.
Yes.
And this fiscal year, Microsoft fiscal years, Microsoft years are slightly different. They start from the 1st of July and end of the last day of June. So our years are different, and that's why the wording is slightly confusing. So.
But I guess the big things are, I mean, there are some customization features going on for the modern search page, which have been announced as well. So we're working on those features and having them ready for Ignite. That's sort of the next conference to demo those features. So but when there's something public to share, I mean, I'll be sure to echo that on my blog and Twitter as well, because it's fun.
It is fun, absolutely.
It is fun.
And Ignite is coming up on, is it November? November, November, the next big one. They will definitely update everybody on the latest on SharePoint Dev, extensibility, Microsoft 365 development in general, Microsoft Search, and all of these things. So really great opportunity on catching up on what's happening. So hopefully we'll see a lot of the people over there. But I think that's it from this one. Thank you, Mikael, for joining and updating us on what's happening on the search side and how you feel after a few months of being in Microsoft.
Well, thanks for having me again. So
absolutely. Thank you, and thanks everybody for watching. Please keep the feedback coming on the social media. Thank you. Bye-bye.